and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I think Dog the Bounty Hunter might be an Inhuman.
Oh, I think you're right. Well, guys, we are back yet again for another week of HMP. Sadly, we are still one less Sean Keenan. However, we decided two's never enough. Three's a crowd, or three's company. I think three's company is how it really works, right?
8 is enough.
8 is enough. 3 is company, and my 3 sons.
And Better Call Saul.
Better Call Saul. And of course, we decided, hey man, if Sean can't come on the show, hopefully he said he should be back next week. Fingers crossed on that one. But we decided to get in our own friendly Canadian conjurer himself, Chris Elvins. Welcome to HMP, sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm just hoping that I'm the Suzanne Summers in this company.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you are. See, the thing is Bruce is the Ritter in the thing just on account of the shorts being so high.
That is true, man.
Yeah,
I've got the gams to be Tripper.
Indeed, you do. So today we're going to be covering the first 4 episodes of Marvel's Inhumans. This debuted actually on IMAX back around Labor Day weekend here to some not exactly what we'll call shining reviews, but we decided, hey, we're going to give this a shot and see what it is, because it's come out onto proper television, so you didn't have to go spend $18 to see an hour and a half worth of a movie up on the big screen. You can see it in the privacy of your own home or Hulu or whatever you end up doing, So we're going to be covering those first 4 episodes there. But before we do that, for people that don't know, Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Well, along with the one and only Bruce Leslie, I'm the co-host of the Chubby Wizard podcast. And, I am from Canada. I spent some time in the U.S. on a couple different occasions, so I've traversed the North American wilderness a few times. And I love myself all things comic book related, so movies, TV, and the comic books themselves. So, that basically sums me up.
I think he is going to be a great addition to this program. I like when people come on that know their stuff. I know Chris knows his stuff, so that's, to me, it's like it's a weight off my back. The last thing you ever want to do is just invite somebody onto the show and they're just like, "A human what now?" No, I don't even. What's a comic book? Trust me, I'm sure that somebody.
These Inhumans are like X-Men, are they? Is that what we're talking about?
They're like the rip-off X-Men, right? That's what they is. They're the rip-off X-Men. That's for sure.
And I will say, unlike myself, Chris actually reads some Inhumans comics, so he can give us a little insight.
Yes, I do.
Wait a minute. There's somebody who knows things more than Bruce Leslie? Listen, I'll believe a lot of things, my friend, but we have to draw the line somewhere.
That might be a bit of a stretch, but I do read. I do agree. I do read Inhumans books. So
we got to draw the line somewhere. But listen, I do want to say this. We talk about it often on this show. But this episode, no less, is one of these shining examples of why you should head on down to patreon.com/HMP, because the things that some stuff went on in Bruce's house involving insects that if you're not listening to this program, you don't get to hear. But if you'd like to hear that, the pre-show, post-show, and of course vote on what we view on this here program, head on down to patreon.com/HMP. A little bit more information about what we're going to be voting on towards the end of the show. So keep that in mind, everybody. And of course, as always, we encourage you guys to go down and give us a 5-star review, aka Humdinger.
Humdinger
on iTunes. There, I was wondering if Chris was going to jump.
I was waiting for somebody else to do it.
It's just like I
don't want to step on anybody's toes.
So if you do, man, drop us a 5-star review. We really, really appreciate that. I'm sure we're gonna have tons to talk here about. Let's go ahead and listen to the trailer. Well, I got to turn off the soundtrack for the other one. My gosh, that was long. Let's listen to the trailer for Marvel's Inhumans.
Sooner or later, the humans are going to find us up here. You should have known this day was coming. Are we supposed to follow our king? remain as silent as he is. We need to go to Earth now. We've been hiding here too long. Let's go to our rightful home. If we were on Earth, we would have a glorious planet to live on, thrive on.
You're talking about betraying your brother. You're talking about treason.
You're blind to his intentions. Right or wrong, he's dangerous.
What I'm talking about is freedom. Freedom for all Inhumans. Are you going to use your voice to kill your only brother? Stop it!
What the?
We will not let anyone or anything stop us. We will create our destiny. Nothing can keep us from being free.
That was the trailer for The Inhumans. Here is the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. An isolated community of superhumans fight to protect themselves. Boy, you really went all out there, didn't you, IMDb? Ugh, crazy. Before we get to how this thing works, we got to figure out some backstory here. So you know what time it is, kids.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got for us this week?
Well, the Inhumans first appeared in Fantastic Four number 45 with the cover date December 1965. But people may not know this. Their home, the city of Attilan, was first mentioned years earlier in a Took the Cave Boy story written and drawn by Jack Kirby that appeared in Captain America Comics number 1 in March 1941. The city was described as the home of a race that was evolutionarily advanced when human beings were still in the Stone Age. At the beginning of the Kree-Skrull War, millions of years ago in Earth time, the alien Kree established a station on the planet Uranus, a strategic position between the Kree and Skrull empires. Through their work at this station, they discovered that sentient life on nearby Earth had genetic potential invested in it by the alien Celestials. Intrigued, the Kree began to experiment on Earth's then primitive Homo sapiens to produce the genetically advanced Inhuman race. Their goal was apparently twofold: to investigate possible ways of circumventing their own evolutionary stagnation, and to create a powerful mutant race of soldiers for use against the Skrulls. Now, the Kree abandoned their experiment because a genetic prophecy had predicted that the experiments would eventually lead to an anomaly that would destroy the Kree supreme intelligence. The Inhumans went on to form a society of their own, which thrived in seclusion from the rest of humanity and developed advanced technology. The mutagenic Terrigen Mist gave them various powers but caused lasting genetic damage and deformities. The Inhumans are led by their king, Black Bolt, and his royal family consisting of Medusa, Karnak, Gorgon, Triton, Crystal, Maximus, and the canine Lockjaw. Throughout history, their city, Attilan, has frequently been relocated, and once it was relocated to the oxygen-bearing blue area of the moon. Do you remember that from elementary school astronomy class there, Adam, the blue area of the moon?
Yeah. It's where that song was based on. You know, Stormy standing alone, breathing on the moon. We all know that one.
Yeah. Well, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are the credited creators of the Inhumans, and I can imagine how that process might have went. I can just picture it. Stan calls Kirby up and says, "Kirby, we need some groovy new characters for the Fantastic Four. I mean, some really far-out cats." And then Kirby says, "Okay, Stan, what do you have in mind?" And Stan says, "I've been reading some Greek stuff, and we should have a Gorgon." Kirby, "You mean a Medusa?" Stan, "Why not? Give me one of those snake-headed ladies, too. I want a Medusa and a Gorgon." And then Kirby says, "But Stan, Medusa is a Gorgon." And Stan says, "No, she ain't. She's a lady with snakes on her head." Kirby says, "That's a Gorgon." Stan says, No, Gorgon is that little fellow with donkey legs who plays a little flute. And Kirby says, that's Pan. And Stan says, don't be ridiculous. Pan is what you use to make scrambled eggs. I want a donkey-legged Gorgon. Do it, or so help me God, I'll hit you again. And then Kirby says, whatever you say, boss. And then Stan goes, oh, and one more thing. I've been seeing this streetwalker. She's a redhead, so make Medusa a redhead. It might score me a free bump and tickle. And then Kirby says, but Medusa has snakes for hair. Stan says, just do it, fatso. I don't have time for this crap. Kirby says, okay, anything else? And Stan says, I really like that Johnny Carson bit where he wears a turban and predicts the future. Kirby says, you mean Karnak? Stan says, yeah, that's it. Give me one of those. Kirby says, sure. Anything else? Stan says, I want a king named Black Bolt. Kirby asks, should he be a black guy? Stan says, heavens no, this is 1965. America isn't ready for a black superhero. But get this, Marvel's going to pay me by the word for this Black Bolt character. The more he talks, the more I get paid. Of course, you still get paid in leftover flapjacks. Nothing I can do about that. So can you handle this, King? Kirby says, I think so. So you say you get paid by the word for this one? Stan, I sure do. Kirby, in that case, I've got the perfect idea. And there you have it, the creation of the Inhumans.
It's like a theater of the mind.
And that was a dead-on Jack Kirby impersonation. Just go listen to any of his recorded interviews.
So let's get to kind of the crux of this. So I've had some slight Inhuman stuff, nothing too wild and crazy. Mostly, them coming in as ancillary characters in other books and stuff like that. But Chris, we're to understand you're a avid Inhumans reader and everything.
Yeah. I'm currently reading. I'm reading Royals, which is an Inhumans book, and I just finished up Uncanny Inhumans and did some Inhumans versus X-Men there a little while ago. So yeah, I try to keep myself current with the Inhumans and the Royal family. That's for sure.
Well, it's really interesting because the whole Inhumans thing, this really came about. I mean, as far as like from a live action production standpoint and everything. Really came, like, there was, to be honest, no real inkling for the Inhumans to come into the Marvel live-action universe in any way, shape, or form until we realized, you know what, Fox is not giving up that X-Men anytime soon. So they kind of doubled down and said, look, we're going to have technically we got our own, X-Men of sorts, the Inhumans. They're X-Men, but not quite X-Men. It's sort of, it can pass well enough, so we'll go ahead and do that. So Inhumans was actually scheduled to be a movie at one point, then back to television. I think it went back and forth between movie and TV a little bit, and finally ended up here over on ABC of all places.
Now, do you want to hear the rumors that I've heard about it?
Okay.
That the Inhumans was 100% Ike Perlmutter's baby. Like, he was brute forcing Inhumans into the movie schedule, throwing all the weight he had around as the president of Marvel or whatever he is. Mm-hmm. And that's when Kevin Feige essentially went to the president of Disney and said, you know what, it's either me or Ike at this point. If you want me to keep making these movies, I'm happy to do it, but you have to take Ike off the board for movies. I can't answer to that lunatic. And he said, or you know what, you can just let Ike make all the movies he wants, and I'll, maybe I'll go to Warner Brothers. So you know how that played out. Ike got the old axe.
Hit the bricks.
You're stuck to the comic books and television. So as soon as Ike got muscled out of Disney Pictures side of things, the Inhumans got the axe from the movie schedule, but Ike kept brute forcing it now through TV, where he works with Jeff Loeb and doesn't have to deal with Kevin Feige at all. And that's how this became a TV project, but he still, I don't know, wanted his dream of it being on this big screen. So he kind of is who pushed that through to that weird 2-week IMAX release it had.
Well, Inhumans was an odd choice, especially when they first came out and said it was going to be part of the cinematic universe. That to me was an odd choice because there's a whole lot of characters I think that you would put ahead of the Inhumans. So, especially with the storyline that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had, it made sense more to be a television show because it's been introduced to the TV, like the TV audience. Like the whole idea of Inhumans, but so I mean it made sense more for it to be a TV, but that whole IMAX thing had to be somebody's bad idea because that's what it was.
And to me, man, the Inhumans just seem really Silver Age. They're kind of schlocky. The thing that worked well in the Silver Age, but I just don't know how much impact, especially the royal family, has with modern folks. You know, a lady with prehensile hair isn't necessarily going to have the same appeal today in 2017 that she did 50 years ago in 1967.
But you don't understand the hair moves. Okay, good for you, pal. What else do you want?
Yeah, you know, I mean, the one thing that they do have going for them in the Inhumans, but you never really get to see it, is the fact that basically Black Bolt with his power level could annihilate anybody with barely more than a whisper. So, I mean, on power level, like, he's an alpha level, strength character, but the whole point of Black Bolt is that he doesn't use it. Right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is he doesn't use his power. So you have this incredibly powerful character that you will barely ever see use his power, whereas every other alpha level character basically is their power. You know, like, I mean, it's all about how they use their power, whereas Black Bolt's all about how he doesn't use his power.
Yeah, so if you did see the Human Torch on fire every now and then, you'd probably be a little cheesed.
and I got to tell you, man, ABC has only given the green light for 8 episodes. So, Adam, what do you think that says about their confidence in this property?
Well, frankly, it's very it's not unconventional to give like a half run before you give like the other half in there to see kind of how it goes.
This puts it kind of in Agent Carter territory. Did she have 8 episode runs?
Yeah, but the big thing is that the problem here is where this thing all comes down to production, because it's come out from several people that have worked in this program, is that it was very, very rushed. And I think especially within the first 2 episodes, you can definitely see where this show is being rushed and kind of some almost half ideas in there. It feels like it's starting to come into its own come episode 3 and 4, but the first 2 episodes really are pretty rocky. And when the people in the production come out and say it as much of like, hey, they really just wanted to make a date and they were moving as fast as they could. Who cares how, what the end quality is? We just want to get it out there because we've set it an ancillary date for some reason.
And
well,
something
yeah.
else.
I was just going to say, I would agree with that, because I think we first saw, like the photos from the set in I want to say like July is when they started coming out. And here we are at the start of October, and, like they started filming in July, and now, 3 months later, they're, even less than that, right? They're pumping out the 2-hour IMAX, premiere. So that to me seems a little bit of, a little too quick to try and, pull off a really high quality product.
Which, with what they're doing in this show, it kind of has to be. You have to have, there's a decent amount of special effects and stuff in this. And with that and the writing and stuff, you're either going to end up focusing more on one or the other. And frankly, you can have all the story in there, but if you don't, especially with a property kind of like this, if you don't have some of the spectacle in there, that's going to lose out. But if you have all spectacle and no story, then that'll lose out as well. But when you don't have, a whole bunch of either, it really starts to hurt your opening there. And that was, and the IMAX thing was the biggest kind of loser of all of it, man, because it debuted a month plus ahead of it actually airing on television. Then everyone who went to see it goes, oh yeah, not that good.
And tell me if I'm wrong here, Adam, but this looks expensive. This looks more expensive than your average network show. I mean, first off, filming in Hawaii can't be a good financial decision, can it?
It can. Hawaii has, from what I understand, Hawaii has some good credits. But here's the big thing: ABC is also not unfamiliar with shooting in Hawaii. If you'll watch this thing, there's a lot of lost cast members in this program. And honestly, the big thing to me, whenever I see stuff like this, it tells me, maybe we just wanted to have a nice Hawaiian vacation all the time. We go to work, but sure shooting, we look out every single morning and look at that ocean. Isn't that gorgeous? You've given yourself a vacation working job. You know what I'm saying?
And I think they have at least one Hawaii 5-0 cast member on here too.
I think probably. So this to me says we wanted to have a lot, because they could transport them to anywhere, right? This isn't integral to any storyline that we're aware of. Yes.
If it were on CW, I mean, they would have been transferred to Vancouver, where all the shows are filmed.
Exactly. So if but this was like a nice exotic vacation for everybody, so they could write it off easy. That essentially is what this is. That's why when Adam Sandler goes, we need another grown-ups movie. How about they all go to Hawaii? Yeah, that's the ticket. That's what we're doing. It's a Hawaii vacation movie. I.e., I also get a free Hawaiian vacation.
But most of the cast, I think, are accomplished enough they can demand a little bit of a rate as far as what they're paid. Heavy on the CGI. The location filming in Hawaii, I think, could be expensive, at least more expensive than our typical places where everything's filmed. I mean, that's why everything's not shot in Hawaii, I would imagine, because who wouldn't want to shoot there if it were economical? And a lot of CGI, man. The dog, Lockjaw's all CGI. All their powers are CGI. I think that's why they had to shave Medusa's hair, was just to help the budget out.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to go with. If you think about the two big, when you see their powers, Gorgon so far, I think he's used his powers once every time. Like once every episode, he uses his powers. We've barely seen Lockjaw. He's like for the whole third episode, he's basically sleeping.
Yeah.
And they show him for like 2 seconds at the end. Medusa makes it through an episode and a half and then gets shaved bald. So it's like all the characters that would have the really, impressive power set because using the CGI have basically not used it. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the whole Hawaii thing made it a little too expensive. So they said, let's make it an Inhumans, let's make it an Inhuman show without any powers, because that's basically kind of what it's looked like.
But at the end, do you think that may also kind of help the program at the same time too, to where it's not always just like, hey, we're going to our powers every single time for something? Because obviously with Black Bolt, we got to hold back on that because it could end disastrously for everyone. But it could be like, oh, well, look at her hair, got her out of this situation yet again and yet again and yet again. It becomes the the paper clip that MacGyver always happens to have in his pocket.
Well, I guess that that is true, but coming from the comic book side of the Inhumans specifically, I mean, once they go through Terrigenesis, like they are their power set. That's what they are. They all have their own individual lives, but they basically get stuck in society based on what they can do, right? And which is kind of what they've tried to work into this with this caste system that they work on. But I mean, taking all these people's powers away from them changes the character entirely from what you're looking at it from a comic book perspective. So, shaving off Medusa's hair is like crazy.
But at the same time, though, first of all, that wig they had on her, awful. It was an awful wig, and honestly,
very true. And
she's one of those people that ladies are either going to look super hot or really, really bad with shaved off hair, and she looks really good. She's a striking looking lady. So, and with a bald head, it kind of works. But you're right, it does hamper that at this point, she also has nothing to show to old what's her face there who works over in X Lab or whatever BS that she's
Louise
over in.
Is her name.
So but she's like, I'm a queen. So just do what I say, because you don't really have anything else other to show than you're just a wackadoo.
Now, my opinion is that the actress really did shave her head for this. I mean, that looks pretty authentic.
No, she did. She did. And she actually did shave her head.
And from an artistic point of view, man, like I can understand Natalie Portman shaves her head for V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is a satisfying role. I think that's a quality product. But, man, I kind of feel bad for anybody. I even feel bad for Karnak if his head wasn't already shaved. I feel bad for anybody shaving their head for the Inhumans.
I don't know. I would feel worse if she had to wear that god-awful wig forever.
I like the wig. I'm all for it. I think it should get crazier and crazier.
That was one of the big things.
Kind of like Storm's wig did in the original X-Men trilogy.
That was one of the big things that people had a complaint when we first saw that Entertainment Weekly, cover story. First of all, Entertainment Weekly cover stories always make whatever superhero characters are showing look worse, right?
Yeah.
And so when we saw this, it was just like, oh Lord. But then again, you're like, but it's Entertainment Weekly. They always look bad in Entertainment Weekly. It's going to look better once we see it in the proper lighting and everything and all that. And it didn't look that much better.
I would have liked it if the hair followed her around. Like they still had CGI hair, but it just wasn't attached to her anymore. Like it became like a cousin It from the Addams Family.
Oh, I was about to say it's the cloak from Doctor Strange, but in hair form.
Exactly, man. I would have loved that, to have that red hair flopping around and make it kind of act like a little dog or something. Have Lockjaw and the red hair as buddies.
She wraps it around a little stuffed dog or something like that. So it's just gotta have a body to it. You're like, go get him or whatever. It's just, but I'll say this, and you were talking about kind of the caste system and things of that nature. And honestly, I think that's where this story is really starting to kind of flow and get there. Because if you look at this, what it is also in a sense kind of a comic booky sort of Game of Thrones super light, you know, where
and building off of what you just said there, I think a good choice for this show would have been to spend more time in Adelan with the royal family.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe, let's just say that they had confidence in their product and they felt pretty good about a season 2. Maybe in the season 1 finale, that's when the coup happens and they get exiled to Earth. Like I would have been interested in seeing more of a political intrigue on Adelan. See them try to subvert some tropes here where we're actually supposed to be on the side of the royal family, which is very clearly propping up an unfair society. I mean, the comics really had a lot of fun with that over the years.
Because the biggest thing is we don't really get to know any of the characters before they're exiled and everything. And it's just, to me, that it happens so fast because they want to get this thing rolling. And again, it feels that's part of the rushness of it all, is that they're
How about
like,
poor Triton, man. I almost forgot Triton was in this. He's got like 7 seconds of screen time and he gets killed.
Yeah, and then they keep looking for him like he's still going to be somewhere. Unless he shows up, because I don't know that we know that he's completely dead, right?
Yeah, I think he's coming back just because he's a fish man. He got shot, but he just went into the water. And I mean, we want to talk about special effects. Like, don't get me started on Triton. Like, it looked like he was clearly an Asian man with a small fin on a small, plasticine fin on his head, spray painted green. Like that's all they did. They're like, here's this fish man, because he's basically a fish, like with arms and legs in the comics. And this one, they're just like, we'll stick a plasticine fin on this Asian man's head and just spray paint him. Good.
He looked like a crummy Star Trek, extra or something.
He did. He did not look good, man.
Maybe
That's
when he comes back, it'll look better.
He's not coming back. They didn't put too much effort into him.
No, he comes back, and they just had to look, here's how it's going to work. We don't get an extra budget till a little bit later. We're going to kill him off. He's going to come back about 4 or 5 weeks later. He's going to look completely different, but he's going to be gone for so long, no one will remember what he looked like, in the costume and the makeup and everything. Going to be way better.
Well, maybe all the extra Terrigen in the water supply, thanks to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., will mutate him some more.
Yeah, he looks awesome now. What happened to you? Oh, I just swam in this water. That's all. Yeah, that's a ticket.
So, Chris, how do you feel about what they did to Maximus, where his Terrigen mutation was to become human?
That's honestly, that is the biggest bone I have to pick with it. I don't mind you creating a new character here, there. I don't mind you slightly adjusting some of the power sets. But the interesting thing about Maximus is that, number one, he's crazy, right? He's completely a lunatic. Yeah. Number two, because of his powers, of being able to, of mind control, he basically is the only one that can really force, Black Bolt to do stuff, because Black Bolt does have a blind spot for him. So, and it allows Maximus, and we've seen it time and time again, to get close enough to be able to mind control him and then basically turn the whole world of the Inhumans on its head. So when you take that out of him and just say, oh, he doesn't have any powers and his mutation was he turned into a human, I mean, to me, that's ridiculous.
Now, they are kind of teasing the idea that he's going to subject himself to a second Terrigenesis. So maybe he'll come out of that. Like maybe they kept him a little more sane and calculating to explain how he usurped the throne, but then he's going to go through that second Terrigenesis and just come out a lunatic with mind control powers.
Well, I mean, I hope so, because like that is turning that character is kind of like he isn't crazy enough. He's not, and without that power set, I mean, part of the fun of that character is that from time to time, because he's a lunatic, he'll make people do like completely evil stuff, but he'll also make them do just stupid things. So well, it kind of brings a little bit of comedy to the character, and just to make him this like calm, calculated guy that has absolutely no powers, to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Now, how do you guys feel about Ramsay Bolton as Maximus?
I think it's a good choice.
I'm not sure about the guy. I don't really know. I feel like he's somebody that I would go, I should know you from something, but I don't. He's pretty good. I like him well enough. At first, he kind of got on my nerves, but now that I kind of see what they're doing, where they're going with the character, it makes a little bit more sense to me.
And I think for the fact that most people that recognize the character already have a built-in hate for him. You know what I mean? So like, even though it's not the same character, they look at that guy, they look at him and go, God, I hate that guy. So it immediately builds up the hate for the character. So I think it was kind of smart casting, I think.
I think from the actor's point of view, though, maybe, I don't know, maybe for his follow-up role to Ramsay Bolton on the Game of Thrones, he should have went out for something like Karnak, like try to be a more noble character so he doesn't get typecast to the sadistic lunatic role for the rest of his life.
Well, he's a little bit look, you look at the guy and you're just like, you probably have a little bit of small man's in you, to where it's just like you're not quite as big as like the big guy.
He's a pocket-sized villain.
He's anybody
who's shorter than Kit Harington is awfully short.
So that's how I figure it. It's just like, you can't be the strapping lead man on this. You're going to be the little evil guy little rat guy over in the corner, just kind of putting his fingers together, going, "I'm going to get you."
I'm hoping they cast Alfie Allen for season 2 so they can bring back Theon and Ramsay.
No, that's casting right there.
Now, Chris, they had these two folks that went through Terrigenesis at the beginning of episode 1, and the lady got the butterfly wings, and her brother got this sort of vaguely defined ability to have visions of the future. Do you think they were consciously giving us Ulysses, or do you think that's just a coincidence that like that kind of character fit the narrative here, and then to those of us who are familiar with Ulysses, it just looks like Ulysses?
You'd hate that the guys putting this on were clueless enough to not. You know what I mean? Like, when this came out, we just came off this big, reveal of this character who ends up in the comics becoming a Celestial, New Celestial. So if they just did this by coincidence, that a guy that had similar power sets, then I feel sad, because to me that means they weren't paying attention to anything.
And that's how they're making themselves look, by not just calling this guy Ulysses. Of course, I don't know if we ever heard his name. I feel like maybe we haven't heard his name yet, but to have this character and not call him Ulysses makes the people that write it look out of touch with the comics it's based on.
Yeah, I can't agree anymore. It's like small things. There's a lot of small things in this show so far that I'm, a lot of like changes in the power sets, putting characters in that they could easily use comic book established characters for, that they create a new character to fit in where they could use one that's already existing.
We call that a David Goyer.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Now, is there anybody close to Mortis in the comic books? Like, I got to tell you, at first I was sort of groaning when they said, "Oh, we're going to bring out Mortis. He's the deadliest guy. He's this loose cannon. We can't control him. He's only death." But then he shows up, and it's like the actor thinks he's in an episode of Seinfeld. Like, the actor's whining about the weeds. He's complaining about everything. Like, suddenly I'm enjoying this whiny deathmonger named Mortis.
You know what? There may be, but he's definitely, if he exists in the books, he's a incredibly minor character. I don't ever remember seeing a character with that power set I mean, outside of Cyclops.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm, you know, he's shown up in stuff that I haven't read, but to me, he's an entirely new character. Like, there's having an Inhuman that opens up a face mask and shoots. I don't know. Are they laser beams?
His cousin was the guy that could show movies with his eyes in the first episode.
Well, there you go. Exactly. Yeah. So that's his cousin. You know, I mean, I don't know. Like if it's a, you know, if the idea was to try to make a almost silly version of and I want to say, because his mask reminds me almost of that mask Cyclops started wearing in the comic books in the last few years, where he wears the big X across his face.
Yeah, like around the time of AVX.
Yes. Like, it's like as if they looked at that and were like, "Ooh, we got a great idea. We'll make a Cyclops, we'll change his name and put him in the same thing, and he's going to be super cool." Like, that's kind of what I feel they did there, because I don't remember the character at all.
Okay, true believers, it's like Cyclops, but he's wearing a gimp mask. What do you say?
Adam, I don't know. Are you like me? Did you like it when they started having a little bit of fun around episode 3 and episode 4, where they started to put a little humor into it? I thought that worked for me, and it felt totally absent from that first 2 episodes that served as the movie pilot.
Yeah, this did feel like they shot those first 2 and then took a little time off. Probably not a ton of time, but a little time, and said, okay, let's take what we got and learn from that, and then kind of develop it from there. And oftentimes you do see that in pilots of television programs and stuff. If you watch the pilot for Seinfeld, you wouldn't recognize that show, 2 seasons later, because it's way different than what the pilot was. It's somewhat similar, but by and large, there's new characters. The tone is a bit different. So there's a lot of times where things kind of change up, and this it changed up for the better for sure.
Yeah, and the Louise character brings a little bit of fun to it with some humor there. But yeah, I like Mortis, the deadly complainer. It seems like something out of a Terry Pratchett book or something.
Just going back to your point, episodes, I guess, would be 3 and 4, far and above, to the first 1 or 2, or what you want to combine them into one, or whatever you want to call it. That first one was rough, and they've definitely... I still have some convincing, but they've definitely turned the corner, at least to positively, in that direction.
And I think it was such a bad calculation to take what I suspect will be the worst 90 minutes of program they had and give it a 2-week IMAX run in the theaters. I think it caused a lot of damage that maybe this show won't recover from.
You're absolutely right. That honestly, that IMAX premiere and the bad word of mouth that came out from this could possibly be their undoing. Had they had this show and did the 2-episode premiere, and then had the next episode ready to go the next week, perhaps people would have been a lot more forgiving on this show. But since you had those 2 episodes out there, and that had enough word of mouth coming out from people just going, "Dude, this sucks," you may not be able to come back from that. That may have been their undoing.
It's like pinning a big kick me sign on your back the first day you go to a new school. I mean, they're just asking for attention when they didn't have something that really, it would have benefited more from a more quiet launch, I think.
Right.
Because on Amazon, ABC already had pre-orders up for the complete season. And it said Inhumans, the complete season 1. And then just quietly, without an announcement or anything, the name of that pre-order changed to the Inhumans, the complete series, which suggested after that poor premiere on the IMAX, they had already made the decision not to renew it before it had even aired. But now, seeing how 3 and 4 are gaining some steam, I guess they could always backpedal on that.
Yeah, it's just, first of all, that's a stupid idea to go ahead and just throw that out there. I hate how these companies are still trying to pre-plan their entire lives, and that's how they justify everything in their lives. Because, frankly, they're all a bunch of suits. They're a bunch of suits that just go, "Hey, here's the best way that we do everything, and we know all the, we're working, 3D chess. We're 6 steps ahead of everybody." It's called, you could still screw up. Just take a deep breath, back off a little bit, and let things, take their natural course with stuff. And that seems to be the problem with a lot of these people, is that they're going, 1,000 miles an hour when it's called just take a deep breath and try to give us something good. Don't meet a date. That's why, it's cool to me that a lot of video games, for example, end up taking their time with stuff. Like the latest Red Dead game was supposed to come out late this year. But there was an announcement that said, actually, we're not going to be able to do this until around spring of 2018. And everybody was like, great. No one was upset. Everyone was like, great. I want you to deliver me a great game as opposed to putting something on my plate before it's ready.
That's what I say about Duke Nukem 3D.
Yeah. No, well, see, that was the problem. That one went on forever and then turned out to be a glorious piece of crap that no one cared for.
Well, that's one of the problems with TV, is that a lot of times these shows take some time to actually find their footing, and then these executives have already made the decision, right? They've already made the decision. So now a show is starting to pick up steam. Well, we've already decided to get rid of it, and now we're moving on to something else. And so you never get to see the show continue to, perform the way we had hoped it was going to perform. All we ever get to remind ourselves of is all the garbage that started out. And then just as it gets good, it goes off the air. So,
well, and here's the thing, at least with ABC though, I feel like it could probably go a little bit longer than most places. For example, the biggest guilty party of that is Fox Television. Fox will put on something, and just as it's starting to gain legs and stuff, just go, well, it's not as popular as we wanted to. Let's nix it. They'll either keep stuff on the air forever, or they'll nix it before anyone got a chance to go, hey, this might be good.
Yep.
Now, we're going to talk about something I love, and then we're going to talk about something I hate. Number one, something I love, Lockjaw, man. First of all, I've always been a fan of Lockjaw. Just, come on. Who doesn't love a big, giant dog?
Yeah, and he looks good, man. They did a good job.
He looks pretty darn good. It's like, they use him kind of sparingly because obviously that budget ain't going as far as they wanted it to. But it could look a lot worse. And, you see a couple of interactions with him. It doesn't look too odd and bizarre. But I will say this, the opening credits and everything where we have kind of the symbols representing everybody that goes through there. And then at the end, over at the bottom right corner, there's a little, looks like a cardboard cutout of Lockjaw, and then it warps the title away. That is corny as all get out, dog. You got to stop that. That's terrible.
I like it.
I know you do, because it's corny and crappy, and of course you like it. That's so stupid,
also,
but I do love Lockjaw.
I was surprised that what I read said Lockjaw was 100% digital. I just assumed that they had a cool little dog that they filmed them doing some stuff, and then they kind of digitally manipulated it, made the image look bigger, superimposed it on the screen or something. But apparently there is no Lockjaw. That's all zeros and ones.
Well, that's good. The only thing I got to complain is that the eyes need just a tiny bit of work, but everything else is fine.
I did if you saw any of the pictures, I'm sure you did. But when they're shooting, they just had this enormous, life-size blue dog that they put to stand in place. So there was that first scene in the when Black Bolt, he transports Black Bolt. Well, when they were filming that scene, it was just him standing there with a giant blue dog, this giant blue plastic dog. And then as soon as it was done, they kept covering it up with a sheet because they didn't want anybody to see it.
So silly.
That's the same thing we used to do to my cousin Elmo at Thanksgiving.
Put a sheet over him. Nobody wants to see. Ugh, gross. And let's talk about though. I like Black Bolt. First of all, I think that he's gone better after those first two episodes because we were acting way too much with our eyes come those first two episodes.
See, you got a silent character. You need a guy that can really get into pantomime.
It's a bit much, though. You can you're not in the theater. You're not projecting to the back row. A camera's 2 inches from your face. Calm it down a little bit. Just, the slightest bit of movement can tell you all that we need to know. Stop going over the top.
I disagree. I want Rowan Atkinson as Black Bolt.
Exactly.
I want somebody who's...
Mr. Bean is Black Bolt.
Because that guy can act with his body. He can pantomime and communicate.
But first of all, let me ask you, because there's a lot of costume problems in this thing. But why could we not get Black Bolt with a cowl on? For real though. It's the most, iconic bit of that character is him. It's just why it's not there for at least most of it. I get it. Get to Earth, take it off, whatever. You're fine. But while he's up there and everything, man, put the cowl on him, dude. Come on.
And the closest they get to him wearing the cowl is they put the little headband on him during that ceremony.
They give him a tiara.
And like he does wear that kind of a headband, but like they made it, and he always has the tuning fork. Like that's, and they kind of made this thing that looked like a tuning fork, but it wasn't, like as the symbol on his on his headband. And I was like, what? Why don't you just put the tuning fork? Don't try to recreate the wheel. Just put it.
I always thought it looked like a tiny little football upright, like it'd be perfect for playing that where you fold up paper and make a
That would be hilarious. Or they just a thunk and all just a little paper football hits him in the head like every episode going, don't make me whisper at you.
Now, do either of you guys know much about Anson Mount, the actor?
He was in Hell on Wheels, which was a really good show. I don't know if you'd watched that.
No, I didn't watch that, but I kind of like the guy. He's pretty much new to me, and compared to the pictures, I guess, that I'd seen from his character in that Hell on Wheels show, he looks a lot better as Black Bolt that he did with the ponytail and everything in the other pictures I saw. He looks younger, actually. I think they dyed some of his gray hair for this role.
Yeah, I've kind of just seen him as ancillary characters in other programs, but never anything like super big.
Yeah, not a lot of recognizable faces, but they've all worked. Like the lady that plays Medusa has done some stuff. It's just stuff I don't watch. Of course, I think we all know that Karnak is from Lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I'm sure the other guys have done stuff too, but I just don't recognize them. I did see that the actress that plays Crystal is somebody's younger sister, Abby Cornish's younger sister. And that Australia voted her as Australia's sexiest vegan at one point. So I guess that's a career starter.
Yeah, I'd say. I mean, who? Well, the question I have then is, who is Australia's sexiest meat eater?
That's Hugh Jackman.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, actually, that makes perfect sense.
Oh, well, all right, good.
No questions asked.
I'm just wondering how they do her hair, man.
Yeah. That's got to be like a wig or something. You can't actually dye somebody's hair and get it to stay lined up like that, can you?
Oh, I'm sure somebody can.
Challenge issued. We want everyone's pictures of their crystal hair dye job.
Well, what if that became like a thing? What if that was a deal where you'd go out to the mall?
That's the one thing that caught on from this show.
We didn't like the program for nothing. I don't care about no Black Bolt, but let me tell you, that crystal haircut, that hit everybody. Hit them hard.
Crystal haircuts and Gorgon boots. Those are by the way, man, they just totally didn't try with Gorgon's feet, did they? Like we get one image of a hoof and then they just put boots on him and
then all of a sudden, yeah, exactly. Then it's like, that seemed like absolute cheating, didn't it? Or it's just like, but he's got regular shoes from now on, so shut it. And you're like, what? That just seems like weak and that you didn't try.
Yeah, and like that kind of brings up another point that I kind of am sore about a little. Like, yeah, just like the character design isn't, in my opinion, faithful enough to the books. Like they're just like they have certain elements, but there's not enough of the elements. Like I think they could easily have brought in extra stuff. Just even let's for example, like with Karnak. You know what? Wouldn't it have just been easy, just when he was still on Adelan at least, to give him his big helmet? Like, couldn't it just been
thing? Yeah,
like just give us comic book guys just a little. Just give us a little so we can sit there and go, okay, that's recognizable. Like one of the things about Gorgon is, he's got the big feet, right? The big hooves, but then he's also like got these like characteristics where he's got like thick, thick
eyebrows, bushy eyebrows.
But it's also they almost like Hellboy. You know how Hellboy's got that? It's like they protrude like his
His jawline and stuff.
Yeah, and above his eyes too, like they all protrude out. Like they could easily have like that, and that's just makeup. You know, I just don't think that, because especially when they were on New Adelan, or Adelan, sorry, not New Adelan. That's in New York City, according to the comics. But you know, most Inhumans have visible characteristics, right? Most of them are visible, whereas it looked like one in every like 7 or 8 had any kind of visible characteristic, which to me just says we're trying to cut corners on costs and we don't want to spend some time with these people in a makeup chair. Just like even the people in the background, just throw on a pair of wings or give them some webbed fingers, or I don't know, give them just anything. But I just feel like they were cutting corners, and I don't really understand on the costuming why they did it.
Yeah, and I also can't understand what makes Karnak such a chick magnet, man. Like, I'm not good at judging these sorts of things. You know, everybody has their own tastes, but man, that lady there at the cannabis farm really likes the cut of his jib because she doesn't waste any time.
You know what I like? I like a man with a lot of face tattoos and no eyebrows. Something about that just gets me going.
27 years older than me.
Yeah. And that's like, you know, like there's another thing, right, that gets on me, because there's no way on earth that Karnak would have any ability to not want to strangle her within 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
they did. I like how they half like talked about that in one scene where they gave the just like, hey, here's what would he like basically went through the whole relationship in like, you know, a 20-second span there, saying here's exactly what's going to happen. And you're right, he just kind of throws that all to the wayside. He's like, well, I guess I'm on Earth now, so when in Rome.
Yeah. Also, you know, when they went swimming, I thought, well, I'm not necessarily seeing the appeal, but maybe he'll take his shirt off and he's got the abs going on and the big pecs or something. Nope, he looks like my 10-year-old son when he takes his shirt off.
Just a dude.
Honestly, I mean, isn't that true, guys?
Well, I guess I'm going in the water now.
My 10-year-old son.
You should see the tattoos on Bruce's kid's face, man. It's crazy. You wouldn't think a father would let a 9-year-old do that, but hey, what do you know? Lets him do it. He's loosey-goosey on the parenting rules, I'll tell you that. Hey, Dad, can I share whatever? Who cares?
Double Mike Tyson, yep.
It's a 2-for-1 Mike Tyson deal over at the tattoo parlor.
I also really liked it, too, when Karnak did the mental calculation of if he kicked the table just right, the whole shed would collapse, and then he kicks the table and nothing happens.
Yes.
That was kind of fun.
And then they go, but then the crazy thing is, too, they go, what did you do that for? They're just like, you've got me
clearly this man hates the table.
Well, at least she had the right thing of like, well, he's probably very angry because you just said you would murder him. So I bet he was sitting there just going, whoo, thank heavens. All right, got out of that one.
I would love a whole spinoff just about the cannabis farm, because I'm far more interested in that than anything else that's going on in this show.
Well,
like the interplay between Kid Reno, the surly Kid Reno, and Karnak with his bad calculations, and the lady that's really into men with facial tattoos in the body of a 9-year-old.
Well, and then didn't he kill the other guy at the end of the episode too and start to bury him?
He's jealous because the one lady, and I mean, come on, she has to understand that she's going to get unwanted attention being the only lady at the cannabis farm. But he's jealous because the old lady's into Karnak. So what does he do? He kills the wrong guy. Like,
he goes, I'm going to kill my buddy and bury him in the thing, and just to be like, boy, you want to talk about massive intimidation? It's called, look, I killed my best friend. If I was willing to kill him, what do you think I'm going to do to you?
And I love it that his name is Reno, man.
It's
never play poker with a guy named after a city. Isn't that some of the wisdom from Teen Wolf?
Yep. Well, before we get to going down the old rabbit hole of whether or not we think the other possible 4, maybe more episodes, depending on how they end up ordering, should go, I think we got to get to something rather important.
There's absolutely no way, Adam. I've seen this whole 4 episodes. There's no way this show can relate back to God's favorite son, Sylvester Stallone.
Well, thank you, Bruce. I have a prepared statement.
You don't say.
Man, oh man, let me tell you, HMPers, this week, I believe we have got the best name we've ever come across. Each and every week, we venture into the darkness of the internet to find that slight glimmer of light at the end of that dark, dark tunnel. We put our noses to the grindstone to find out how a movie, TV show, or even an occasional animated movie connects to the biggest name in Hollywood history. But sadly, most of those blokes have names like Tim or Jonathan or Mary or Susan. Sure, finding out how a person connects to the only man in the world who drinks marinara out of a shot glass is interesting, but how interesting can it be with a boring name like Chris or Bruce? You know, not at all, says I. But this week, it all changes. This week, we celebrate the work of one Dickie Beer. That's right, Dickie Beer, B-E-E-R. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's his nickname. No way that someone names their child Dickie Beer. Jane, you ignorant lady who does the stuff. Dickie Beer is a real man, and that is his real name. Dickie Beer is from the Netherlands, and he loves danger. Dickie Beer has 108 stunt credits to his name, including 2 episodes of this week's review of The Inhumans. But middling superhero shows are not where Dickie Beer's bread and butter are made. No, sir. While you may not know the face, you'll always remember the name Dickie Beer, and you'll assuredly never forget the films he's worked on. A Bridge Too Far, Superman 3, and Supergirl, which we cover on H&P episodes 1 and 5 and 64, respectively. Krull, Dune, Bond movies, A View to Kill, Never Say Never Again, Tomorrow Never Dies, and my favorite movie of 2014, Nightcrawler, and many, many more I won't mention because, well, I got a feeling Dickie Beer might come up again on future episodes of HMP. But one of the highlights of Dickie Beer's amazing stunt career was when he was the stunt double for Boba Fett in Star Wars Return of the Jedi. That's right, Dickie Beer got eaten by a Sarlacc pit, man. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
Now, he also doubled for a lot of other people in that flick as well, including a shot or 2 for our hero, Mark Hamill. And while being a stuntman as one of the holy Hollywood trinities of sci-fi movies is quite the distinction and honor, it's nothing when you compare it to sharing the screen with the man whose foot fungus has been said to cure cancer, Sylvester Stallone. Now, Dickie Beer was in the stunts department on Stallone's Daylight, a real old corker of a turd, brought to you by the same guy who gave us the Fast and Furious, XXX, and a movie that I thought was so horrible it was fantastic, The Boy Next Door with Jennifer Lopez, which, believe me, the last 15 minutes of that flick make it worth the suffering. Oh, wait, what were we talking about? Oh, yeah, Daylight. Daylight is about a disaster in a New York tunnel, and it's an explosions collapse both ends of it. Stallone has to help the people inside fight their way to safety. It's not a great flick, but it's got Viggo Mortensen before he became a big star, and was clearly made as a vehicle for Stallone and his now late son, Sage. They had a hard times in the Stallone household, but those two got to share the screen one more time because, let's face it, no one wants their last screen time to be with their dad in a crap movie like Rocky V. And let me tell you, Daylight is to Rocky V as pumpkin pie is to puke. So there you have it, HMPers. This week's Stallone connection. Now, Bruce and Canadian Bruce, let's rate this show so we can get back to doing what we do best, throwing our lessers
Canadian
into the
Bruce. That's awesome. That's going to be my new nickname. I'm telling everyone that's my nickname.
Let's rate this show to shut up so we can get back to what we do best, throwing our lessers into the acid mines for our own amusement. Go ahead.
Let's let Chris go first. He's the guest.
Chris, you're our guest. Where does The Inhumans, episode 1 through 4, fall on the patented Robin rating system for you, sir?
Tim Drake.
Tim Drake. Okay. Explain
That's
yourself.
not bad. Explain yourself. Yeah, explain yourself. Tell us a little bit about what makes it a what makes it a Tim Drake and not something else. The stuff you like. It sounds like you like.
I mean, it's definitely not a Dick Grayson, right? I mean, because if it was, it'd be something like like something more we would see with the DC stuff when it comes to I guess superhero comic TV shows. You definitely have to look to DC as the kind of the Arrow and Flash as the top. So it's definitely not anywhere on par with that. It's definitely not the worst either. I mean, we've seen some bad shows, some comically bad stuff, especially the 70s and 80s TV shows. So
yeah.
Although they are amazing. Doctor Strange, amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, it's not terrible, and it's getting better. I don't think it's a Damien, and it's not there, but and I don't think it has a chance to become a Dick Grayson, but it's not the worst thing out there.
Pretty good. Bruce, where you got?
Well, man, if I were just judging it solely based on what came out at the IMAX, because I think we toyed with the idea of just reviewing it as if it were a movie, this would be bad. This would be real bad, man. It got a lot of ill will built up. I was so bored. Like, episode 1, they took the pilot and broke it into 2 episodes on Hulu. Episode 1 didn't have any commercial breaks. Episode 2, they started putting commercial breaks in, and it actually made it better. But when I get to 3 and they're introducing some humor, and I get to 4 and that humor's still going, and I'm getting curious about stuff, I'm hopeful, but I'm not that hopeful. I'm going to put this as Stephanie Brown, but I was prepared, after those first 2 episodes to be Jason Todd in this thing.
Wow.
Now, I'll say this. Speaking of commercials, DirecTV, could you stop placing 6 ads on every commercial break when you do the on-demand stuff, dude? Come on. And if you're going to do 6, at least switch them up a little bit. I've seen the same 6 commercials 58 times within the episode for 4 episodes. Oh, my gosh, dude. It's unbelievable. It's terrible.
Oh, man. Hulu has made me so sick of those Thomas Middleditch Verizon commercials I could pull my ears out.
You should see some of the other junk I had to watch. I couldn't even tell you that because I've just decided to, rip my eyes out of their head when those things came out. I'm throwing this thing as a Damian Wayne. You're right. Had this been just the IMAX premiere that we saw, it would have gotten Stephanie Brown bordering on a Jason Todd, no doubt. But episodes 3 and 4 started to give me a little bit of hope, man. I feel like this thing could come back up. It could get into the Tim Drake area if they decide to really kind of focus in and keep what works and ditch what doesn't. 4 episodes in, if they do 8 total episodes this season, I'm on board for the other 8, man. So I hope they continue to do this, and because it's ABC, I feel like they may give it a little bit more of a berth. But at the same time, too, we look back at something that we believe was fairly successful with Agent Carter, and they kind of dropped that like a hot potato, man. So I can't sit there and say that, they know exactly what they're doing all the time. But, who knows? If they drop that, well, Lord knows they'd probably drop this a lot quicker, I would think.
Yeah.
So there you have it, everybody. Chris, thanks for joining us this week, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime I can come out of my igloo and find some kind of electronic signal, I get excited. So,
oh, you hosers out there, it's time for me to get on the internet, I tell you.
There you go.
We really appreciate it. Next week, everybody, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this here program is brought to you by the people that help us over at patreon.com/HMP. Now, it doesn't matter if you're at the, any level of donation with that, you're going to be able to vote on what we watch next. And so we're going to be catching up on a couple of things. So we decided to throw out a few there that may be a little bit newer. Perhaps you might want to see them. But if you don't, hey, you get to vote on whatever you want to watch. So we're going to be covering either The Gifted. That's the new X-Men show on Fox. Why they could not, I don't think they want people to watch it because it's called The Gifted and has nothing to do with X-Men written on it. So I don't know how they really want people to see that. Also, Batman and Two-Face, the animated one of the late Adam West's final performance as Batman. That's coming out on digital and stuff not too awful long. And of course, we got to do 2 other ones here. Another animated one, Justice League Dark. We put that up a couple of times. It's gotten a couple of votes, but so we're going to put that back in the ring there as well. And of course, we couldn't have a Patreon vote without having Zorro the Gay Blade in there. We know Rocket Face really wants that one, so we're going to throw that in there as well. So the way you vote on that is just go down to patreon.com/HMP, join up at any level, vote on that, and we will cover that next week. And supposedly Mr. Keenan will be back when that happens. In the meantime, let's start with Chris. Where can we find more of your work on the internet, sir?
Well, you can always tune in to the Chubby Wizard podcast every week. Or you can go to doing a little bit of blogging now on our Chubby Wizard podcast website. So you can go in there and take a look at that. But you can find me at Canuck_LV on Twitter. And that's probably the best place because that's the where I'll share the odd musing when it comes to comic books and related stuff.
And we
and
do.
the Chubby
we'll have
Wizard
those
website is chubbywizard.com.
Yep, we'll have all those
chubbywizard.com.
links in the show notes there. Bruce.
Man, I just want to ride this Chubby Wizard train for a minute. You know, that's something I never thought I would say as an adult, but here we go. I want to tell people this is a good day to decide to go read Chubby Wizard Wrath of the Manticore. It's the second book that I ever wrote. It's been available for a while. I know there are plenty of people who haven't checked it out yet. It's sword and sorcery. It's high fantasy. It's action comedy. It's saving a world from an evil manticore, maybe a necromancer, maybe some zombies, maybe a wolf man, maybe dwarf wrestling. Regardless, Bruce the Bard and Chris the Elfkin are there to help the Chubby Wizard defeat evil. It's on Amazon, $1.99 for the ebook, $7.99 for the paperback. It's on Audible. Just slip me a credit, get it there. If you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber, you can read for free.
Do it up, people. I mean, come on. How can you go wrong? And, of course, our other podcast, The Film Find at thefilmfind.com, new release reviews every single week. We got a whole bunch of those coming up and not too awful long. And, of course, I've been having to move it around a little bit, but Nerd Talk Now will actually be on Monday evening. If you go to nerdtalknow.com, that'll switch you right on over to the Twitch page. We'll be doing a live show. You can call in if you want to or whatever. I just talk about nerd stuff. And this week I'm going to be doing a Would You Rather. Last week was a good episode because I ate some of those really horrible jelly beans in front of everybody. And to see me eat spoiled milk jelly beans, boy, let me tell you. So if you just check out all the past episodes are up at nerdtalknow.com. That is it, everybody. Join us next week when we talk about whatever you guys voted for the Patreon program of the week. For the missing Sean Keenan, Chris Elvins, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Goodbye, Marty and Evie.